Hello. Welcome to the Full Advisor Coaching Podcast with your host, Kristin Harad. Kristin, it's good to be with you again. How are you?
I'm great, Bill. Good to see you. I'm excited for today because we get to do some planning, and I love planning, reflection, and planning, and looking ahead. I'm, as you may have figured out, very vision oriented. So I'm excited to be able to tap into vision and a little bit more down to, of course, like some planning for the rest of the year and looking into the year ahead.
Well, yeah,
So
you know what they say. I mean, it's nice you have a vision and it's nice, but vision doesn't mean anything without the thing
a
you're really
plan.
good at, which is planning. So,
Yes, the plan. Yes. I mean, I could live. I love doing the vision exercise. It's why we, I think it was it might have been episode 3 that we
okay.
talked about how to set a vision and how I work with my
Yes.
V2 leaders to set vision. So that is something that we will mention today in talking about it, but I really want to tap into, I think by the time this episode goes live, if someone's listening to it right when it comes out, it'll be around September.
Mm,
And September is a great time of year to check in and kind of look back on how far you've come. You still have a good quarter ahead of you to hit whatever goals you want for the current year, and it's like a nice time to start thinking ahead to the following year. So it's a great time of year. That being said, one thing I think is it's interesting. We all follow kind of the calendar year, and I think it's kind of driven, of course, by just the natural turn of the page, right, and the
right.
fresh start. But I also and budgets and when people set budgets and money and investing. But I think what's really interesting is that you can really do the exercises we're going to talk about today any point in the year, right? We don't have to wait until the calendar turns to be like, okay, well now it's this date, so I can do this now. So
Yeah, but
I
I
think,
think a lot of us, I think a lot of us are on that September autumnal calendar because for so many years we went back to school then, and then our
oh
kids
yeah,
went back to school then, and so I think in our
true.
minds, at least I know it's true for me. I think of autumn as a time, oddly, to refresh while the leaves are falling. I'm
Yeah,
thinking
exactly. Where you're like,
refreshing.
okay, I got to get my school supplies, get my backpack
Yeah.
together, get get the schedule sorted. I think it's ingrained at an early age, and so it carries on. And then if you have children of your own, it continues. So
It does, yes.
yes, yeah. So I mean, as you know, at Full Advisor Coaching, we're all about not just professional success, but personal fulfillment, and kind of looking at how do we navigate this work life integration. I don't like to
Yeah.
say balance, because balance, as we learned in episode 2, that's work life balance is a myth, but the integration of it all is something that we stand strongly for at Full Advisor Coaching. So as we go through today, I'm gonna ask the listeners to answer some questions and do some, journaling, if you will. And if you're driving and listening, just wait till later to write these answers down. But otherwise, get out some paper and pen, or open a browser, and we
Yeah,
have some questions.
don't journal and drive. Do
Yes,
this do
exactly,
this at home.
But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, again, it's I want advisors to look at, okay, what else do you want to accomplish between now and the end of the year, and how can we start to put in place the things you want for 2025? Because if you just wait and decide to do that in 2025, it's too late. We want to start looking ahead. And then I think to be able to do that well, it's important that we start by reflecting on where you've come for this year, right?
Okay.
It's really easy to get stuck in what you haven't done. So I think it's important to answer the question, what's your biggest achievement so far this year? What is it that you've accomplished since January, say, or since 6 months ago? What is it that you've accomplished? That when you start looking at this type of acknowledgement, and we've talked about it before, the sort of gap in the gain concept, like you could look at what you haven't done, but we can also look at what we have done, which is the gain, right? And so that's a Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach. That's his a concept that he wrote about in the book Gap and Gain. And that's something that, I think not enough people look back and go, oh, let me acknowledge where I've won.
Now you're not suggesting that people ignore what they haven't done. I think what you're saying is focus on the things that you have done with the knowledge that you've achieved. You've made progress. You've gone somewhere in the course of time.
Right. Because when we come into the year, or at the start, we're like pretty optimistic and excited, and things are happening. But as life happens and things continue, either what you care about can change, conditions might switch, things might happen. So you may not be where you want to be. So it's important to check in and acknowledge what you have accomplished, because maybe you've blown your goal out of the water, right? And you're like, whoa, I didn't really set that high enough. I had no idea. But it could be anything, but just really looking and saying, not just like, oh, this is the progress I've made. So what was unexpected? That's another great question. What unexpected success did I have this year that I didn't see coming? That could be an important thing to acknowledge. Another thing could be, what challenges have you overcome? So maybe you didn't see something, maybe something happened and you didn't know it was coming, and you lost a big client that you weren't expecting, or an employee left that you weren't expecting would go. What have you overcome? Because we all kind of weather the storm and learn something from it.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important, because a lot of times we just quickly want to look ahead to what is it that we want to do that, next. But to stop and reflect back and say, okay, here's what's happened. Here's what I've learned. Here's what I've overcome. Here's what I've been successful at. And then another big thing is who has helped contribute to your success. So kind of acknowledging the players or the influencers or the team around you, so that you can sort of see, okay, I'm not going this alone, right? So I think that's really important as well.
It's interesting. I think a lot of people intuitively do the, what have I accomplished? Where did I fall short? What kind of changes happened? I don't think a lot of people, however, look around and think about the people that contributed to their success.
Right. No, I think it's an important piece, and it's something I see more and more, just about how important the community is around you, the support, the team, the engagement, and we'll get more into that a little bit later. But I think that is an absolute essential acknowledgement. Plus, we can't all do everything ourselves, right? There are certain people with certain skills who do things better than we do. And it's important to acknowledge where those players are and who they are and how they help you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I have worked with people who think they did it all themselves, but everybody who worked for them thought that's just not true.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it does come to a point where we've got a temperature read. We've kind of, patted ourselves on the back, said, hey, look what I've overcome. Look what I've achieved. Look what I've accomplished. This, so giving yourself credit, but then also saying, all right, well, let's look ahead. There's time left for me to accomplish my goals. What do I need to recalibrate? Is there something I need to shift or change before the end of the year? Because if you have a goal that you set that's way off the mark, you may want to revisit that and give yourself a little more grace on it while still keeping the challenge. So it's kind of a balance of how do we keep a goal that's going to keep you driving forward without kind of being in a place where that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. So it's in between, but, look and say, what goals have you not yet achieved that you're working toward? And then what I think is a really useful thing is to say, kind of, what are the existing obstacles that are blocking me from completing that goal? Because that's usually why we don't get the energy behind doing something, because we're like, the thought of overcoming that obstacle is too much. Like, that's a lot. So if we can take a step back and look and go, okay, here's what's in the way. What can I do about that obstacle to remove it or mitigate it so that I can make progress on that goal? So spending time before you go, okay, this is how I'm going to reach that goal, looking at first what's getting in the way and really spending time there and saying, all right, this is what's stopping me. Then once you acknowledge that, you kind of free up the mindset to be like, okay, let me solve the problem. Let me move ahead. What strategy can I put in place? But usually you have to get past that first thing before you can get into the strategy part.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense, because that reflection and that acknowledgement all give you some clarity about.
Exactly. Clarity. Absolutely, because you're looking and saying, okay, I've seen what has worked well. I see what I need to shift or change to be able to move forward. And sometimes it means I see what I need to eliminate,
Yeah.
like just take out of the picture. So, and importantly, it also may show what kind of resources or support you might need moving forward. Like, is there a knowledge gap that you don't have that you want to bring in? Is there a team member that has a skill that you want to bring in? Is there support or accountability that you need to keep yourself on track? So these are all things that you can look at for moving forward to not only achieve what you want for the rest of the year, but looking ahead for the next year. So I think it is, like I said, a recalibration, a checking in to say, did I set a goal too high, too low? Do I need more time on the goal? Do I need a different help or support? And then we take it from there. But you mentioned clarity, and we've talked about this many times, but clarity is absolutely the main reason people come and work with me or participate in one of my coaching programs at Full Advisor, because with clarity, we can find direction. But without it, it's like every week you're wondering, what should I spend my time, money, or energy on? I don't know where to go. So that is really helpful if we're thinking about, okay, if you're listening to this in September or October and you're thinking, all right, the new year's coming. I know my plan for the rest of the year, but what do I want to do next year? It's really the perfect time to start thinking ahead to that, and thinking about kind of big picture things. And this is where I encourage listeners, if they haven't done it, to go back to that episode 3 around finding clarity and how to shape your vision, because you definitely want to tap into. I like to tap into the 3-year vision, because I think it's still tenable and within reach of like what kind of reality is. But when you look at the 3-year vision and you say, okay, what parts of that do I want to extract to accomplish in 2025, in the next year, depending on when you're listening to this. So what is it from that vision? You're not going to do all of it now. It's 3 years, not next year.
Yeah.
What can we bring into the now, and what can we look ahead to and say, this is what I want to accomplish, but in 2025. So I find this very exciting, because this is where you get to dream a bit and have some fun. So I enjoy it because you can look at possibilities, and that's really kind of what I think is really fun for advisors and the type of business we're in. And being an entrepreneur is that you can really shape whatever you want to shape for the next year.
Well, I think, you've talked about this before, but when you have clarity, when you've reflected and you have some clarity about your vision, it can also give you, answers to where you are in that 3-year plan, right? So that you can be like,
right,
well,
exactly.
okay, I am further along in that plan than I thought I was, or I
Right,
failed in this area and I'm going to need to do these things. I'm going to need to hire more people or spend more money in this area, but
right, right,
now you have that clarity to understand it and you can move forward. It allows
right.
you to go, yes, I can define these things now and I can move forward.
Right, right. And I think an important thing, kind of stepping back and looking and saying at doing the exercise, obviously the 3-year vision, but bringing it back to what do I want to have completed by the end of 2025? That in of itself, like, how do you envision your business operating or being kind of a year from today, 15 months from today, so that you can start to see, again, what are the possible hurdles that might come up. Another thing, what skills or knowledge will you need to develop to be able to do that? And then importantly, and I think this speaks to, again, that kind of back to school mentality and the like looking ahead and thinking about what expertise or support or help do you need to achieve what you want.
Yeah.
Who is it that you need to bring in? So these are the decisions that when you can give yourself the space to spend time on this so that you're not feeling rushed and that you have time to really think through and block time where you're like, what do I really want in the next 12 to 18 months? What's really important to me? You have to give yourself that space to be able to really think it through and not just kind of squeeze in the exercise. Like, I don't know, maybe I should hire an agency to do something, or maybe I need to outsource my investments. And you're just like throwing things out. Well, versus like really planfully thinking through these things.
Yeah.
And you probably know where I'm going on this, but that doesn't mean just your work, right? Because if we only focus on the work part, then we're missing a lot of the equation.
Yeah, because
So,
as you talk about all the time, this is about living your life fully.
yeah, exactly. And work's just one part of it, right? That's
Yes.
and for the people listening, it's a huge driver of what fulfills us, right? Professional fulfillment and achievement, but
Oh,
and
yeah.
also the type of work. Like when you're a lot of financial advisors who start their own RIA or are working in the independent space are extremely they're givers. They want to help. They want to help other people. And I think it's really important that you also remember to reflect back to yourself and develop goals that are outside of work, right?
Yeah.
So it's frankly really the fun part, right? Isn't it? It's easy to get caught up in work and achievement, but then you go, okay. And again, I encourage listeners to go back and think, reflect back on the year in your personal life too, outside of work. What's brought you the most joy this year? When you look back over the year, most likely what's made you the most happy is probably something beyond work. And, I can tell you that's what I see that as well. It's trips I've taken with my family. It's friends I've caught up with. It's being outside. It's being engaged
Yeah.
and just energized, right?
Oh, no, no,
So I
no, no.
think,
And I mean, I know, speaking for myself, I know that there have been plenty of times in my career where I lost sight of that fact. And, and then I
absolutely.
realized by happenstance that I had just done something that had nothing to do with work, usually having to do with my family. Then I was like, this is great. And I realized work enabled me to do that. It gave me it gave me the ability to do that, but I really
Right.
liked that. And, and it's easy to lose track of those things when you're like I was, very singularly focused on work and, my and professional achievement.
Yes, absolutely. And I think when we spoke with Arlene, that was probably episode 12,
I'll
maybe, if
trust
I'm
you on the
remembering
numbers,
correctly.
okay?
Yeah, I'm guessing. I don't know how I can pull those out. She spoke about like seasons of engagement and how different seasons of your career may have, you may dial more up on personal fulfillment and more on professional, and how this gets back to that work-life balance myth, right?
Yes.
Like it's about kind of the integration of the two. So that's another good episode to get into more of those things. But to me, this is the most fun part. This is the concept of sitting down at the beginning of the year and deciding which days you're taking off, and like, what are the trips, what are the breaks, what are the adventures you're doing, what is it that you're doing for your own mental and physical well-being, right?
Yep.
So that's the fun thing, where you get the fresh new calendar and you're like, and then we'll take a trip here, and then I'm going to do this, and you mark those days, which is I think the most fun part of the year. And then you do get, you make sure that you're blocking time for those activities that rejuvenate you, that do make a difference. So I do think it's important, when you're checking in on that 3-year vision, that it's not just about work, but it is about you as a as a human, a person engaged with yourself, your family, your friends, your community, your life, your growth, your experience, all of those things. And so I think having some goals around that is also important. The idea of, something that's I found pretty interesting, of like, where is it that you might be able to learn something new, right?
Mm,
Like, especially if you're starting to feel a little like de-energized or flat, or like, oh,
yeah.
I've been doing the same thing over and over again. Like, I had been reading about this. It's like, where is it that you can learn a new skill that will allow you to kind of start at square one and make some huge improvement, right? So that you're showing you're able to master something or make progress in a meaningful way. And it could be a new software program. It could be you take a class that's unrelated to anything related to work, and you're like, I'm going to learn a new skill. I'm going to learn how to knit. I'm
Yeah.
going to learn how to play poker. I don't know what it might be, but something where you're like, I'm going to try something new. Pickleball, that seems to be a popular one, right? So things like that, where you're like, I can come in with a blank slate and show, and learn something that I've never learned. Or say, you know what, this is something that I've always wanted to be able to do better, and so now I'm going to learn or improve on that. So maybe it's getting a coach, or again, taking a class, trying something different. This is something that I've been toying around with for myself, trying to figure out, what skill do I want to
Mm,
improve. And I'm considering looking at taking a writing class, like not writing like writing a blog post or writing, but like writing a story, right?
yeah.
Like learning and going back and revisiting the mechanics of story. How do you create a story? How do you look at the arc of a story? And it's something that I find interesting, and I feel that I'm winging it more so than learning the actual structure. So I'd like to explore that. Another thing that I've thought about is doing some improv, because that scares me. And
Ah,
I thought that
okay.
would be fun. I thought it'd be fun. Yeah, it
Did
scares
you
me a
have you
bit.
like ever done
No,
improv
never.
before? Or is this one of those?
Never.
It's like one of
No,
those. Maybe I
not at
oughta.
all. Not at
No.
all. In fact, it kind of, I walk by a place that has it all the time, and someone told me, oh, they just do beginner classes. And I'm like, all right, maybe I'll pop in and do that. So that's, you might have to hold me accountable on that one. We'll check back in a few episodes. But what about you? I mean, do you understand? Like, I think it
Oh,
can
no,
give
no.
you.
Look, I totally get it. I'm going to make, there are a couple of things that I have in the last couple of months decided that I was going to make a commitment to. Have not been really good at them lately, but one is learning Spanish. And I grew up in Texas, and when I was in fourth grade, we had Spanish classes, and I've known Spanish speakers my entire life. So the fact that I can't really speak Spanish or understand Spanish embarrasses me. And I thought, this is silly, Bill. There are all kinds of apps out here now.
Yeah, exactly.
So, let's go learn Spanish, and let's, brush up on it, and maybe it'll come to me quickly. And I have to say, the few times that I've done it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know that. And it's like,
good.
So it's there. Right. And the other one is, we'll see about this one. When I was a kid, I took violin lessons and loved the violin. Oh. And then I got interrupted, and I recently bought an electric violin, so that it,
I love
it's quiet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me see sound. If I can,
I will get you featured before the end of the year. We'll change the intro music.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, and you can do it. That'd be good. That'd be perfect.
So it's it's fine. And I do want to do those things. I really do want to do those things, and I will do those things. Maybe not as quickly as I want. But I really understand the value of what you're saying in terms of do something different, try something different, learn something you don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just about learning something new, to be like, hey, I'm challenging myself and my brain. And sometimes advisors do it by learning more, doing their CE and getting back and really learning the details of like tax code or laws and stuff, which is all great for the work, but try to do something that that expands your brain in a different way or in another area. I think that is an interesting challenge. I agree. And also I think, it's something you can look at, even just looking between now, if we're talking about goal setting between now and the end of the year, it's thinking about like, what is, one activity you can pursue between now and the end of the year, even if it's, for my case, like getting online and be like, all right, let me find a class that might start in January that I could take that will help me learn how to write fiction or something like that. Like something where I'll get the class schedule, some small step that you can take to look at that. So I think that is a great way to expand your boundaries in just your own personal development. And then another thing that I think, this one is important because right now I'm flailing a bit on what I'm excited about next, right? Like, so in terms of vacation, relaxing, what is it? We always like to set, like, people plan their vacations for the year and you get excited. And then if you go on one and come home and you're like, that was great, some of the letdown is that you're not doing it still, right? And so then you're like, well, now what? And so I think it's important to schedule out things that you can look forward to or be excited about, whether it's a vacation or just a weekend away with a friend or your spouse, or even meeting up and trying a new restaurant or something that you're like, oh, I've been wanting to do that. I've mentioned before, spent many years in therapy talking about, anxiety and just overall self-exploration. And I had a therapist who he loved to travel. And he would say to me, he's like, you always want to know when you're taking your next vacation before you return from the one that you're on. And I was like, that is great advice. Because then you get back and you'd be like, great, now I can't wait until we're going to be going, next summer to blank. So that is really good advice to at least have an idea of like, what is it that you're excited about that's coming up that you can, put your energy toward, that's tangible. And then my understanding from reading too, and I wish I knew who to attribute it to, but is that the fulfillment of like traveling, for instance, or a vacation comes in three parts, which is the planning of the actual trip, like the lead up, the preparation, the learning about the exploration, then the actual experience, like going on the trip, and then the reflection back or the memory of the trip. So you kind of have three parts. So if the actual trip itself isn't exactly what you thought it would be or didn't meet expectations, you can kind of rest assured knowing that the fulfillment comes across the spectrum of having planned it and gotten excited about it, having experienced it, and then reflecting back on it no matter what happened. So it's kind of an exciting, that's a bit of a tangent, but something that kind of gives you solace if it rains on your beach trip or you get stranded somewhere and you're like, all right, well, all of this is just part of an experience. So it helps you reframe that.
Sometimes better parts of the experience than other times. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I take your point. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think kind of, again, looking at this goal setting, there's the shorter term between now and the rest of the year. Like, what do I still want to accomplish? You don't want to just go, well, it's almost done this year, so let me just wait till next year. Like, what is it that you can still do now to move yourself forward? And then what is it that you want to paint and prepare for in the year ahead? One last piece I want to talk about, which kind of came up as I was thinking about some of the things that, again, falls back into personal fulfillment and even work, is this whole idea, and I'm kind of going to go about 30,000 feet now, but of people reflecting on what steps you can take to improve something called social capital. And this is a term I hadn't heard before, but I listened to the New York Times Daily podcast. I don't listen to it daily, but it's called The Daily. And I listened to an interview with an author, a retired Harvard professor. He's a social scientist, Robert Putnam. And I was not familiar with his work. I guess back in 2000, he wrote a book called Bowling Alone, which was a book about how he warned that Americans were becoming loners instead of joiners, because they had shifted away from joining clubs or bowling leagues or churches. And so it was kind of a downfall of institutions, right? So he was talking about this trend back in 2000 when the book came out. Well, in this recent interview, which is like 24 or 5 years later, he's essentially saying, well, we all know what happened. He's like, I talked about the downturn in 2000. We all know what's happened since then, right? Like with the, the internet and social media. And then, of course, COVID exacerbating kind of loneliness, if you will. And so he talks about social capital, which is really your connection among your social network, essentially. And we don't mean like followers or likes or those types of things, but like your connectedness to people around you.
It's interesting. I when you brought up the phrase social capital, I immediately went into like, thoughts of quantifying social media experience as opposed to the antithesis of that, actually, which is
right.
your
It's the
connection
feeling
with real people,
feeling connected to real people or community. And so, I mean, he was essentially saying like, because then, and like you disconnect, right? Because when you are joining churches or temples, or he uses running club or a bowling league, you're connecting with other people, right? And
Yep.
so you build trust, and when you build trust with those around you that you're actually seeing and engaging with, you can count on those people, and they're there. So it's actually it's again fascinating. We probably do a whole episode on this, because I find it so, speaking of things to learn about, I as someone who works from home, who has been, kind of engaging completely through Zoom, I feel this a lot. And so looking to say, how can I engage and improve and feel more connected, getting out and showing up at live events, showing up at conferences, joining organizations, working out at my local gym and going there every day and seeing the same people over and over again. These are really important. And so, it's another reason why, like in my coaching, I've added the group component, right? Because I feel like there's more connectedness, more accountability, more learning that happens when you bring more people in, right? Whether, because I can help people one-on-one, but I've found that the ability to really feel that connectedness, feel like you're not going through this whole experience alone, comes through stronger when we have more people there supporting us. So
No, I completely agree. I quit smoking in 1985, and I smoked a lot.
oh wow,
And
okay.
one of the things that helped me was I quit in a group. I didn't quit by myself.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, so we all had to be accountable to each other about whether we, had a cigarette or,
interesting.
started smoking
Yeah.
again or whatnot.
Interesting.
And, just the idea that now you had an accountability to yourself, and that was the primary motivator. But
Right.
you now had a group of people who were like, oh, with whom
Yeah.
you had to,
Right.
who
You
could
had to
hold you
show up.
accountable, right? It was
Right. Right.
I understand exactly what you're saying. I totally get it.
Yeah, no, I'm going to explore more on this. I mean, the Surgeon General put out a report about how loneliness is one of the biggest health risks in our country now.
Yeah.
I put it out last year. I know advisors are talking to their clients about it as they age and longevity increases, and people are, staying active longer. It's like, how can you keep your social connections and keep that social capital, like the connectivity, the human connectivity? Importantly, even if you're an introvert, because I know a lot of advisors goes, well, I'm an introvert, I don't like, it's not about that. It's about connecting with a human. It's all about whether you're extroverted, introverted. It might show up in a different way, but
Right.
connection is super important. So
Yeah, no. Extroverted people might have 50 people they connect with, and introvert might have 3 people that they connect with, but they're still connected with people.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So yeah, it's another challenge, and something that I certainly worry about, and worry about for my children, worry about for myself, worry about society. And so it's something that's come up. And so look at that for yourself. How is it that you can become, what action can you do to become even more connected to those around you? So that's my last question for people listening in today.
Well, I got an answer in part. I mean, I know because around the time this is airing, you are going to be starting up new sessions of your coaching, right?
Oh, my V2 Leaders program.
V2
That's correct.
Leadership.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. And that is built around group leaders, I mean, RA leaders who are creating version 2 of their firm. And we really do bring the collective together on that and say, okay, we have, it's an intimate group of people, of leaders, only a few firms, and we come together to, again, look at what do we want to accomplish, how can we get there, and how can I guide you, and how can you support each other in getting there. So it is, you're right, the timing on that is perfect. I hadn't even put those dots together, but you're 100% right. So thank you.
No. I mean, I think it's important. And I mean, for people who are listening who are not familiar with that program or don't know how to reach out to you about that program, I mean, how they do that?
Oh, you can just go to fulladvisorcoaching.com, click on the V2 Leaders program. It's under the service tab. You can also just reach out to me directly. There'll be a button that says request a call. You can schedule a call and we can talk about that.
Yeah, no, then that's great. And I would encourage listeners who are listening and sitting on the fence maybe and thinking about it to do that. This is the time of year, I mean, you can reflect, you can acknowledge, but you can also do.
Good point. Take some action. It's true.
Yeah.
And support with the community, which is one of the benefits of the program and one of the most fulfilling components I find. So
yeah. So
hopefully people can join us. Yep.
Exactly. What's the name of the website again, Kristin, before we go?
Fulladvisorcoaching.com.
Oh gosh, it's just like the podcast name, right?
Yes, there you go.
Don't forget branding, people, when you're thinking about marketing, okay? For those of you who are listening to the podcast for the first time, every one of the episodes is this entertaining. So you're going to want to subscribe, and you can do that really easily by reaching out and just hitting subscribe and follow. And that way, every time Kristin drops a new episode, you can listen to it and you can learn something in the theme of what we're talking about today. I would also say, if you're listening to it and you have some kind of ideas and you think, well, I wonder, or a question, don't hesitate and reach out to Kristin with it. Let her know. I get in touch with her and say, I have a question. This came up. Because I'm sure that I know she would love to hear from you, as a matter of fact. So please, in fact, do that. Until next time, I'm Bill Tucker, thanking you for taking the time to listen today on behalf of Kristin and everybody at Full Advisor Coaching. Thank you. And remember, you can go out today and you can make today a great day or not. You do have a choice, and the choice is yours. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. Until next time.